Is punishment an effective behaviour modification strategy in children? My main reference that I have chosen for this topic is from Gershoff et. 2002, Corporal Punishment, Physical Abuse, and the Burden of Proof, Psychological Bulletin, Volume 128, Number 4, pages 602 to 611. Before we begin, I can hear yourself asking, what exactly is corporal punishment? Well, as Gershoff explains, there are many variations in what people believe are forms of such punishment. More importantly, there is a fine line between what is considered corporal punishment and what is deemed as physical assault. Gershoff discusses how she used the definition proposed by Strauss, 1994, that corporal punishment is the use of physical force with the intention of causing a child to experience pain, but not injury, for the purposes of correction or control of the child's behavior. Recently, there has been concern about whether parental corporal punishment is associated with various child behaviors and experiences. In Gershoff's article, she explores different perspectives on the issue, one being Holden, 2002, who presented a clear review of his findings, as well as detailed discussions of aspects of Gershoff's process context model that require further explication. Another writer, Parkey, 2002, brought readers up to date by summarizing the history of his famous research on punishment. He further went on to explore the issues, ranging from studying what effects corporal punishment has on children, is the right research question, to the need for expanding research on punishment to incorporate appreciation. Taken together, the three commentaries by these experts in the field of parent socialization and punishment provide valuable extensions of the original article. Gershoff supports these writers, praising them on their important and valid points, and further explores each concept in her experiment, drawing ideas from all. Now, moving on to the experiment. Gershoff's experiment aims to distinguish whether the use of physical force without the intention of causing injury may or may not be effective in controlling the child's behavior. It may be hypothesized that children are less likely to partake in inappropriate behavior if they are to experience parental corporal punishment as a result, than compared to children who do not experience such punishments. This graph represents discipline strategies parents are likely to use. As you can see, the idea of corporal punishment declines rapidly with children's age, perhaps a suggestion that each punishment is only effective temporarily. For example, 30% of parents spank their 2 to 5-year-old children, much higher than those of 13 to 17 years of age, where only 13% are spanked. The next graph supports this idea, but also raises the idea that non-physical methods of punishment are more common and may be considered to be more effective. Closely related to the topic question, this graph also presents the idea that there are many forms of discipline that parents use, who obviously believe that it is an effective method of behavior modification. Participants in this experiment range from adults to children to adolescents, given there were many studies completed in relation to this aim. Gershoff, along with her peers, ran a multitude of different methods in an attempt to gather data to support her hypothesis. This included parental diaries, nightly phone calls, beeper methods, longitudinal designs, and combinations of laboratory experiments and field observations, where participants, both parents and children, were required to outline whether they believed corporal punishment was effective or not. In this modern day, corporal punishment, such as spanking or hitting, is considered to be unethical. Thus, experimenters were required to gather information using non-observational techniques. Gershoff, with the help of others, conducted over 80 experiments. As noted by Holden, 2002, noticeably absent from research on corporal punishment are studies of children's reactions to corporal punishment, due to the fact that such data is simply too difficult to collect. The lack of empirical research prevents researchers such as Gershoff from making concrete conclusions. Hence, there is a substantial need for research that begins to answer such questions as: how do children feel when they are corporally punished? How do they perceive the corporal punishment, and what leads them to accept or reject the disciplinary message that accompanies or is implied by the corporal punishment? Do children later remember this disciplinary message, and do they act consistently with it in the future? But the most overriding question, also the topic question, is punishment an effective behaviour modification strategy in children? Gershoff concluded that parental corporal punishment has a strong correlation with children's behaviour. That is, the more harshly or frequently a child is physically punished, the less likely they are to partake in behaviour their parents may deem as undesirable or inappropriate. Hence, the act of physical punishment effectively changes children's behaviour. However, there are many limitations to this experiment, as the low rate of corporal punishment presents a challenge to researchers who are only able to obtain small samples of parent behaviour. Modern-day society have grown to view corporal punishment as immoral and unethical, consequently making it difficult for people like Gershoff to gather enough evidence in order to generalise findings to a wider population. Furthermore, Gershoff discussed how future research needs to emphasise the interplay of relationships among members of a family system by examining the effects of the marital relationship, the child as witness of the punishment of siblings, and of overall family cohesiveness and beliefs about corporal punishment. Evidently, the field of influence is complex and requires innovative research designs and diverse samples to appreciate whether and how corporal punishment has beneficial or detrimental effects on children. Future endeavours. Perhaps in the future, experimenters may run studies that focus on punishment, but steering away from the corporal aspect of such studies. This may make observations possible and easier to administer. For example, telling off a child and observing their behaviour and reactions to such a punishment. This way, the punishment conducted is moral and ethical, allowing researchers to really examine and understand the effects of punishment in modifying behaviour. Another way to gather data would be to simply administer various self-report methods, but again, settling for a focus on verbal punishment. This may target a wider population, as questionnaires are inexpensive methods of collecting research, and thus provide a more accurate measure of the effects of punishment.